Hey everyone, Happy New Year, and we want to say Happy New Year and welcome to the very first Radiotopia Presents of 2024. It's a series that we are truly excited about. It's called Shocking, Heartbreaking, Transformative. Now, this is from documentarian Jess Shane, who put out an open call on Craigslist and then worked with 4 strangers to explore the standard rules that documentarians and journalists use to tell their subject stories. So the series gets into all sorts of questions about what happens when people's real lives are collected, edited, and consumed. The show pulls back the curtain on what goes on behind the scenes of your favorite nonfiction shows. And then it turns in on itself and some really interesting twists and turns along the way in the making of the show. I've gotten to know Jess a little bit over the making of this show. Every time I chat with her, there's a new wrinkle to this story. It is really incredible. So go check out the new Radiotopia Presents series, Shocking, Heartbreaking, Transformative. It is out now on your favorite podcast platform. Hello and welcome to This Day in Esoteric Political History from Radiotopia. My name is Jody Avirgan. This day, March 21st, 1937, the date of what came to be known as the Ponce Massacre. On Palm Sunday, March 21st, 1937, a peaceful march in Ponce, Puerto Rico, was attacked by police who shot and killed 19 Puerto Ricans, including a 7-year-old girl, and wounded over 200 others. So here to discuss this incident, this protest, this massacre, and its legacy is, as always, Nicole Hemmer of Columbia and Kellie Carter-Jackson of Wellesley. Hello, Niki. Hello, Kellie.
Hello, Jody.
Hey there.
And our special guest for this episode is WNYC's Alana Casanova-Burgess, host of the new series La Brega, which is a 7-part look at Puerto Rican identity released in Spanish and in English, just look at identity on the island and off. So Alana, thank you for joining us and congratulations on this series. I really love it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And you are joining us from Puerto Rico. We should say that. Are you down there for a particular reason? Doing some reporting or?
Some reporting. Yeah. Some promoting some La Brega love.
Good. Great. So, Alana, we'll get to this event, but I'm wondering if you can actually start a little bigger picture and talk about how much the Ponce Massacre has a place in Puerto Rican historical imagination and Puerto Rican identity. How much, what is its place as you see it?
Well, the Masacre de Ponce is basically, there's everything that leads up to it and there's everything that comes after it. But from my understanding, and I should disclose here that I did not grow up in Puerto Rico, I grew up in New York, but my friends, my family, my mother they tell me that actually you don't really learn about it in the public schools here. And if you do, it's very briefly. So a lot of people tell me that they learned about it in college, which is somewhat shocking, or after college, just, figuring out history as we do, as we live. And that's really shocking because it's quite an important event in Puerto Rican history and also a very violent one and one that had huge ripple effects that people don't actually talk about all the time.
So what is your sense of what led to this moment?
Well, the 30s in Puerto Rico was a really interesting time. So you have the Great Depression going on in the United States. There is not the same amount of aid that comes to the island as everywhere else. So there's a lot of poverty here. There were huge labor strikes in the mid-30s, sometimes quite violent labor strikes. And into that context comes this governor, this U.S. appointed governor, Blanton Winship. It's important to note that there was not a Puerto Rican elected government until the late 40s, which is quite late. So the colony gets these, U.S. appointed governors, of whom Blanton Winship is one. And he comes in and he starts to crack down on these protests that are going on. And one of the protests that is scheduled is March 21st, 1937. It's a protest, but it's meant to be peaceful, scheduled for the city of Ponce, which is in the south of the island, scheduled for Palm Sunday. It has sort of two purposes. One is that the independence leader, Pedro Albizu Campos, was imprisoned by Blanton Winship. And so it's partly a protest of his imprisonment. It also is meant to commemorate the end of slavery in Puerto Rico. And so people are gathering in Ponce, and about an hour before the march is supposed to happen, Blanton Winship says, like, nah, you're not going to do this. This event is being canceled. So people gather anyway. And then the insular police fire on the crowd. 19 people are killed. I believe the number is some 150 are wounded in that peaceful march. It might even be more than 150. Yeah. I mean, it is a very, very bloody event. A child is killed. Many people, I mean, we can certainly get to this, but there is an ACLU report that comes out later. The government itself never investigates, but in an ACLU report, it's found that many people were shot in the back. There are no weapons found at the protest. And, you know, this is such a violent crackdown from the government on what is essentially a peaceful march.
Well, yeah, it's about 253 people that are wounded, 150 people that get arrested. A 7-year-old girl is killed. And the way that, you know, this massacre is covered in the United States is quite skewed. You know, the New York Times and the Washington Post report that the protesters shot first. And so it creates this narrative of, you know, those rowdy Puerto Ricans, those rowdy protesters. This is, you know, what needed to be done in order to maintain peace or order. And this is, you know, during a time when people are not, I would say, because we're still in the United States steeped in the Great Depression, as is much of the world, people are not aware or even sympathetic to what's taking place on the island.
Yeah, and I would add to that, you know, it was Governor Winship who said, oh, the crowd had fired first, and they had fired on police. But it was two Puerto Rican newspapers, including El Imparcial, which publishes photos of the massacre. And that really brings to light what actually happened here. Even though, again, as I say, the government of the U.S. never investigated. Governor Winship was not put on trial for this. There was really no repercussion for him immediately at all.
And the newspaper is called the Imparcial?
Which means the impartial.
Well, there you go. So they did their job in that particular moment, I suppose. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm also really struck by the role of Franklin Roosevelt in all of this. It feels like he is really cracking down in Puerto Rico and advocating and promoting the crackdown that's happening in Puerto Rico. He has such a rosy image in the mainland United States. And of course, this doesn't affect his image in the mainland U.S. at all. And he comes off pretty awfully in this story, not only as the person who appointed Winship, but it takes him until 1939 to recall Winship, even though by 1937 it's clear that this was a massacre, that the police had acted as a mob in this situation. But not only is, you know, nobody interested in the mainland U.S. in pursuing those charges, but there just really are no consequences, which is pretty awful.
Yeah, and Roosevelt appoints him even though Winship had this reputation from Nicaragua. He had been there supporting the dictatorship there. One of his first moves when he comes into office is to militarize the insular police. He tries to pump the brakes on a higher minimum wage in Puerto Rico, which would have helped. So this guy comes into office like, you know, the writing's on the wall.
Yeah. So to that end, I mean, what is your sense of Winship's reaction in this moment? It seems to be some mix of specific fights, this agricultural strike, the minimum wage thing, maybe a sort of power trip on his part, to put it lightly. But then where is there also this element of a growing nationalist movement? I mean, can you place this in the sort of larger sweep of that?
Well, you know, he comes into office in 1934. Just a year later, there's another massacre, actually, which is a couple years before the Masacre de Ponce, which is the Masacre de Rio Piedras, where a number of nationalists are killed. And, you know, the word nationalist can sound a little scary to us now, but when you live in a colony, the word nationalist has a different meaning. It's an independentist. And so 4 members are killed then. And, when we think about the arc of violence in Puerto Rican history, there are obviously examples of nationalist violence against the U.S., but it comes in reaction to violence from the U.S. against them. So, you have this event in Rio Piedras. 2 years later, you have this massive massacre in Ponce, this sweep of violence in Puerto Rican history in the 30s. It's interesting not just interesting, but it's essential to think about all of that in the context of the colonial relationship with the U.S. and what people were fighting for. And they weren't, fighting violently to begin with.
And how long had a sort of nationalist independence movement been active on the island by this point?
Before Puerto Rico was a U.S. colony, it was a Spanish colony as well. So, there's been an independence movement for a while. Yeah.
When we think about Puerto Rico, it's one of the last places to abolish the institution of slavery. When we think about, the United States effectively ending slavery in 1965, Puerto Rico's 1873. Brazil comes a little bit after. Brazil's the last. But if you are thinking about this in a larger movement where within about 50 or 60 years, people are still trying to figure out what liberation looks like, what emancipation looks like, what political enfranchisement looks like, and economic enfranchisement. And I think that it's important to note this because oftentimes people think that, emancipation comes and boom, everybody should be happy. This should all be great. And it's no, this is just the beginning of a very long process of how we reckon with citizenship and how we repair the harm that has been done from slavery, from colonialism, and so forth. And so all throughout, the 19 teens, 20s, 30s, violence is often the response from the state to oppressed people. And I think that's really important to note. The narrative gets skewed that poor people or marginalized or Black people or brown people are rising up unjustly so, but they're often responding to the violence of the state. And I think, it's important to emphasize that.
Agreed.
And that was the thing that really came through about this story is how much of it was just about control through various forms of violence and stripping of rights and imprisoning political prisoners and, trying to abolish political parties and doing whatever is possible to, create the outcome that the U.S. government wants on the island and using whatever force it takes to make that outcome come about.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Many people don't know that it was actually illegal. It was forbidden to fly the Puerto Rican flag in the 40s. And one of the episodes of La Brega that we tell is the story of las carpetas, which are these surveillance records, these surveillance documents, which targeted the independence movement, but also anybody who had any kind of association with the independence movement whatsoever. So if you talked to, looked at, were on the phone with, had a sister, all of that, you would get trapped in this network of surveillance, which really punished the independence movement and punished anybody who even had any kind of sympathetic leanings towards it. So, in the series, we talk about the ripple effects of that distrust because it wasn't just the FBI that was working here, but also the local police working in concert, in collaboration with Puerto Ricans who were spying on each other, informing on each other to the police. And those wounds run deep. A lot of people were discovered when they got their surveillance records back. And this program is the only example in history where people get their own surveillance files back. And they open them and see that their brothers had been informing on them, that their friends had been informing on them. And there's never really been a process of reconciliation or truth-telling around that here. And, there's still a lot of fear. It's even in the language that's used around, be careful, te van a carpetear. Be careful, they're going to make a folder on you if you speak out about a particular piece of news or you talk about independence. So it's very much still like part of the discourse.
All right. Well, that brings us to the end of the episode. And I will say the episode that Alana just referred to from La Brega is the third episode. It's called An Encyclopedia of Betrayal. It's a fantastic episode. The whole series is really wonderful. So Alana Casanova-Burgess, host of La Brega, thank you for doing this. This was really fun.
Thank you so much for having me.
And as they say, you can find that series wherever you get your podcasts. You are listening to a podcast right now, so wherever you're doing this, you can also find La Brega. Nicole Hammer, thanks to you as always.
Thanks, Jody.
And Kellie Carter-Jackson, thanks to you.
My pleasure.
This Day in Esoteric Political History is a proud member of Radiotopia from PRX, a network of independent, listener-supported podcasts. Thanks to all of you listeners who have become supporters. There is a form on our website where you can do just that. You can become a monthly member or just give a one-time donation if you are in a position to do so. It helps not just this show, but the work of Radiotopia in general. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And of course, on our site is a way to get in touch with us. If you have any questions or comments about the show, you can also email us, thisdaypod@gmail.com. Our researcher and producer is Jacob Feldman. Our producer is Brittany Brown. Kala Nakua does transcripts for every episode. Find links to those on our website. My name is Jody Avirgan. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you soon.
Radiotopia.